I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous people of all the lands that we're on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. And we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and improving our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people that call this land home. I'd like to introduce you to Trudy Raymond. She's a senior financial advisor who serves the Durham and Clarington communities, and that's where I live as well. She grew up as the eldest and only daughter with a West Indian background, which instilled strong family values, but also acted as her ember to empower women and inspire confidence for hardworking people to build and preserve wealth through education. She's proud to say she loves spending time with her family, her husband, dog and cat, which we were just talking about. A typical Saturday night for us is playing cards with my parents, not me, her, with her parents, and watching Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, some people might disagree with that, go Leafs go, but we'll let you deal with that yourself. Her favorite quote is "Knowledge is power," and she's excited to share her knowledge with us today. Welcome, Trudy. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. So it's really nice to see all these lovely faces. Oh my goodness. So today, we're going to start, but first and foremost, I want this to be, and you'll get to know me as this session kind of goes forward. Appreciate your time, but I want this to be like a coffee, like you're chatting over coffee with a friend who just happens to know a little thing or two about the estate and will side of the world. I live and eat and breathe this every day. I also have my administrative assistant who's a valued team member of mine. Her name is Susan, so she's on the call today. And if there's anything that you need throughout, because it's an open, informal conversation, we'll have at the end of it some question and answers. And if there's something that is a little more personal that kind of has sparked a question in your mind, feel free to reach out outside or offline. And we can certainly have a chat. I'd be happy to help you as much as I can over there. I guess that makes sense, guys? I'm going to try and keep this in under 40 minutes, but again, let's see how things go. One of the things that I wanted to kind of share, because quotes resonate with me, is this quote about families. And families are like branches on a tree. Even though we grow in different directions, our roots remain as one. And I think that it is extremely fitting, considering we're talking about, really at the end of the day, is continuing our legacy and sharing that with those we love the most. And the tree itself is a symbolism of life. And I wanted to share that with you guys today. So why are we here? Who wants to share with the group why they thought today would be a great opportunity to be on the call?
You can throw that into the chat, or you can unmute if you feel like doing that.
Sure, I'll do it.
Hi. Who's talking? I'm sorry, I can't see everybody.
It's Pat from Sudbury.
Hey, Pat.
Hello.
Hello.
The reason I joined today is because my father is 89 years old, still lives in his own home, a stubborn Irishman, and is going to die in his own home. And that's what I've been told. So I'm the executor to his will, and his will is probably about 30 years old.
Okay.
But I've taken a look at it, and so I'm just here to find out some information if I should be actually getting him to do another will, or if the will that I'm looking at or looked at is going to be okay.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. And just as a side note to that, if the bulk of the will does not need to be redone, although it is recommended to review and update wills every 5 to 7 years because of grandchildren, because of marriage dissolutions, and acquiring additional assets. So that's why it's recommended to really update that every 5 to 7 years. However, if the bulk of it is still intact and viable, all you need to do is go to a wills and estate lawyer and ask for them to addend amend certain components of the will. So you won't need to, or in this case, your dad won't need to provide that, like pay up that entire cost.
Right. Okay.
Fraction.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. No
Yep.
problem. Who else wants? Oh, I
Okay.
see an iPad raise their hand.
Yes. And I just before that, I just want to say Rhonda says in the chat, because I know you can't see the chat, Trudy. So she says she'll be 68 in September and she has no will. So she's
Okay.
finding out about stuff with that.
Okay.
There's a more specific question about executors and people if they're not in Canada. Like how do you
Okay.
get those things? So we'll talk about that.
Yep.
Carmen says her will was written in BC. Is it still valid in Ontario? We've got separated from my husband since years ago. I have remained in the house as he does not want to be living in it. So, okay, that's another thing. There's lots of questions. Everybody has such a varied answer. iPad, with your hand up there, did you want to unmute yourself and tell us what you're here for?
I just did.
Oh, no, not you. Sorry.
Oh,
It could be
okay.
me.
That's okay.
Can you
Yes,
hear
you.
me?
Yep,
Yes.
we can hear you. Yep.
Hi, if it's me, okay, I have the same question about an executor not being in the country. Right now, I have a up-to-date will, and I supposedly have an executor, but he's way out in BC. My only family lives in Arizona. I have one son. So my problem is two things. How much of this information that I have, and I have everything that I need in a file drawer, but he's in BC, my son is in Arizona, and I'm here. How much of that has to be scanned, or should I be looking for an executor closer by? And I guess my big problem is, how do I get this information to my son and the executor? I've got very bad arthritis in my hands and I can't type it all out. I have the information. It's just how to get it to everybody, and whether
When you
it's
say you
really
have
important to have it on the computer.
Okay, so sorry, what is your name?
Marilyn Schultz. And I'm
Marilyn.
from Toronto.
I didn't want to call you iPad, so
Okay. Oh.
I mean, I
How'd that
could
happen?
if that's what you go by, but I didn't think it was.
No, I usually have my name on it. I don't know what happened.
No problem, no problem. It might have gone through an update. So this is an excellent question, which I get asked a lot of the times, because their kids, once they become age of majority, end up becoming the executor or executrice if it's a female, and then they move on to start their own life and it's outside of the country. It is doable. It's a little bit more complicated. Lawyers tend to recommend finding a person who is local to you, because taxes and other legalities or rules tend to differ between province to province, let alone within like internationally. So you don't just have to have one executor or executrice. You can have multiple. You can have where it can get a little sticky, but as long as it's outlined properly, that it is doable. So you could have, let's say, a really good friend here, and then your son in this case, who's in BC. No, not sorry, your son's in Arizona, but who's in BC?
Okay, my financial advisor is Raymond James. It's a huge company, and they're trying to start out of the State Department. And just 2 years ago, when my husband died, they assigned me a specific person in BC. So the first thing I'm going to try to do in 2 weeks when I'm talking to Raymond James is try to change that executor and get him closer. But are you saying that if I can't, is there any way that I could? I don't have any friend or any person here that can do it. I already have one friend doing my power of attorney for health and one doing my power of attorney for finance, and they don't want to be involved in, being an executor. Could I have another lawyer who's here in town and who's here in Toronto? They've talked to each other on chat before. They know each other.
Okay, so there's a
possible
couple
to have two lawyers.
So there are a couple of options that you can do. Because there's a couple of people who are also having executors outside of that. Yes, you can have, you can hire someone. So
hire. Yeah.
Appoint someone, but just the Raymond James person that you're dealing with now, are they in Ontario?
The financial advisor is, but no, the executor that they assigned me when they started this new estate department, estate department, which I didn't realize 2 years ago because I was
Okay, so your
upset about
advisor
my
is in
husband
BC?
dying. He is in BC, and what I'm going to try to do is change it. If I can't change it,
So
can I have somebody here in Toronto?
Yes, so I'll let you in on a little tidbit from an industry regulation perspective. The person who is looking after your finances, if they're not in your province, they
are. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So let's leave
They
that
are,
one.
but the lawyer is not. Okay, the finances are here. Okay.
Okay. But the advisor is also here.
And the advisor is here. It's the lawyer that's not.
Okay, so let's if you want, I can reach out to you outside of this.
Yeah.
And then we can have a chat a little bit more and I can guide you through that a little bit better. Okay.
Just to let everybody know, I've put Trudy's email in the chat right there. So it's trudy.raymond@ig.ca. And if for some reason you lose it or whatever, just email me and I can give it to you. Okay.
Or Susan, yeah.
And could you put it up once more? Trudy.Raymond.
@ig.ca.
So Trudy.Raymond.
See it's in the chat there.
You'll see it throughout the presentation as well.
Okay.
So,
It's in the chat and I'll make sure. And you can always, anybody, if you lose it or whatever, just reply to any of those emails that you get from Art Your Service, and it's always me, and I'll give you that email again.
Okay.
Okay.
awesome. And Helen, your hand is raised.
Yes, it's Helene.
Helene. Okay.
Yes, I feel I'm pretty well prepared.
Good.
Spoke with my son last week, but you're never too sure. So I'm just want to see if there's anything I could have missed.
Okay. I love it.
Never get too much information.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. I can't see anybody else. So if nobody else's hand is raised, then I can proceed. So I trust Jen, you'll let me know. Oh, you're on mute, my dear.
Oops, sorry. LJ Dan, I see your hand
Yes,
up.
yes, hi.
Hi.
I was
Hey.
wondering if you have no children or relatives, in the country, what do you do about appointing various powers of attorney for health and for finance?
So you could go the route of hiring. Now, do you have someone trusted that usually the estate lawyer will also have a handful of people that can do that from a non-partial perspective?
I have an option with my trust company who manages my investments.
Okay,
To have them act as executor.
that's an option as well.
But they can't do the mandates for health and for finance.
Correct.
So,
You could
yeah.
also have a relative or a family member outside of Ontario, so long it would just be a hierarchy, like an order of it. No, I don't want to say an order of importance, but it would be person in Ontario would have to consult with person outside of Ontario, but the person in Ontario would have the kind of the final say, if you will.
Okay. And
Okay.
it can't be the same person for health and finance, right?
Yes, it can. Yeah. So
Oh,
your
it
power
can.
of attorneys can be
Yeah.
your executor as well.
But my executor would be the trust company and they don't.
Okay. So you wouldn't want to, yes.
So, okay, so I would need separate people for health and finance, powers of attorney, or
Yes.
or one person can do both.
No, you could have the same person who is also a power of attorney for property and assets, so financial, which is power of attorney for personal and care and healthcare. They can be
Oh,
one and the
okay, all
same
right. I
person.
thought they had to be two different people.
No.
Okay, great, wonderful, thank you.
Awesome.
So Trudy, did you want to go and do your presentation and then we can
Yes.
go and talk to other people? I
Absolutely.
feel like
Yeah.
we won't get to the presentation. So Carmen, I see your question in the chat, so we'll get to that. I know she's going to talk about blended families. So Mazel, did you want to mention anything right now, or did you want to, can you wait till after Mazel?
I can I can wait till after. Thank you.
Awesome,
awesome.
awesome. Okay.
No, we're
thank-
glad everybody's here, but we just want to get some of maybe this will answer some questions before we even get there. Okay.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. So some of the questions which I already have heard also, but also there is, where do I start this whole process? There's so much to know. Why do certain things matter? And I have so many things to consider. I can't do it all. And we all often get into that analysis paralysis state. And what makes the most sense for me? So yes, I have all this knowledge at my fingertips. I have my lawyer, I have my accountant, I have friends who tell me one thing, I can Google it. There's Trudy right now telling me all this stuff, but what actually really I should be concerned about in my world? And realistically, I break it down into 3 kind of pillars. That way we can kind of just compartmentalize it and just ease into everything. And the first one is we want to communicate. So I already get a sense of the majority of us on this call are pretty comfortable talking about this type of topic, which is wonderful. And you're already hopefully having discussions with your family members, with the people who you are, your loved ones, and also the professionals in your world. Then we also want to consider what all this means and apply it to you. And then finally, we're implementing a plan. Now, let's be also transparent that this plan will be fluid. It changes. It can change quite often. So even though you may have a set of plan now, maybe in 5 years, it might change. And that's okay too. So think back. I want you guys to visualize in 1998. Would you have predicted that your retirement years or your years now would have looked like what you had expected it to look like in 1998? Meaning, in 1998, you're like, 25 years from now, I will be ... Meaning, your parents would be gracefully aging. Children have actually flown the coop. And they're starting their own life. And you're either in freedom of retirement or you're preparing for that. Let's be realistic. You've had victories, you've had struggles, you've had triumphs, and throughout those years and during that time, you've accumulated so much on your journey. And now you get to choose how you gift all of this to your loved ones. But as we know, things don't go as planned. Are you guys part of the sandwich generation? Meaning, on one side, that one piece of bread, now you're caring for your aging parents. They're either living with you, they're in a community lifestyle residence that maybe you're helping to pay for, or maybe they're still, I've heard, as we've heard this morning or this afternoon, that there's some that refuse to get out of their house. They want to just live and die there. And then what about the children? The children are not flying the coop. They can't afford with the markets these days, which you guys heard last week, I'm sure, with mortgage rates. And they can't buy the first home. And also either they're trying to pay off their student debt, or they're balancing cost of maybe childcare if you have grandbabies, which some of you hopefully will be blessed to have. There's too much. We've had my story, this part of my story, so I'm not going to go into that part, but what's important is why I'm here too. So I know I've now got a little bit of why you're here, but why am I here? What makes me different than the Scotiabank advisor or the Edward Jones or wherever? And I'll tell you, first and foremost, sorry guys on the call, but I'm a woman. Like Maya Angelou, I'm a phenomenal woman. We tend to be more nurturing. Typically, there are some exceptions. And we tend to be a little bit more approachable. And I think that is a strength that I'm proud to say that I have. I know what it's like to have built something from nothing. So as Jen mentioned to you, my parents came, I think they weren't even 19, 20 yet. They had nothing, no family here. They came here and they built something out of nothing in their own way. I understand that struggle. I know what it means when things are going sideways and how to persevere and how to just, part of my French, crap hits the fan and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to do this. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to look for. You feel that sense of helplessness and you don't know what's the best thing for you. And unfortunately, I also know what it feels like to experience the heartache from losing a loved one, especially most recently. You don't expect it. And even if you did expect it, it still doesn't make it easier. We just don't, I don't know. It's a very like that grieving process and then having to do all those tasks associated with it. We don't want to leave that type of task unplanned to our loved ones because it's too much to navigate all of that from a legal perspective, the pressure from everyone. And there's family drama. There's always family drama. Why did that woman sit beside? Why did Aunt so-and-so, Sally Sue, sit beside that person at the funeral? We don't need to be consumed with all of that. So today really is all about, because I understand the value of family and that burning desire. So I don't have biological children. My husband has a child whom I've known since she was 3. It's been 15 years. So there is that element of blended family for me, but I understand what it's like to share that legacy and where he might want his legacy to go to her. As much as I love her, maybe some things I don't want to go to her. So how does that help you? Because now I'm going through it. I've been through it. So I can tell you how to navigate to suit your needs, right? So today's agenda, I'm going to fly through this. Obviously, we've met me, estate planning, and then the 5 things to consider for a strong estate plan. We'll do a very, very brief case study, which also speaks to multiple properties, and a question and answer session. So I hope that kind of gives everybody an expectation, all about the forward thinking there. Who can tell me what their perception is of what is estate planning? Anyone want to share what their version of that is? What does it mean to you? Unmute yourself, put it in the chat.
Hi, it's Pat from Sudbury again.
Pat. My mom's name is Pat, by the way.
Pardon me?
My mom's name is Pat.
Oh.
Love it.
So for estate planning means for me is to make sure that first and foremost, my father's wishes are carried out correctly and not somebody in the family saying, I want this, I want that, and fighting over it. Even though there probably still will be some, like you say, drama because, dad left his war medals to this person instead of that one. But if it's written down, that's what I tell them, put it in the will and then it's clear.
Good. Love it. Who else wants to share?
I just want to say,
Ingrid.
hi, Ingrid.
Hi. So to me, the estate is anything that's valuable that belongs to you. So that's my house and any jewelry. And then also you have to be particular in terms of if there are special things that you want somebody to have, that should be pretty clear too. And I've dealt with family drama, not my own family actually, but other people's families. So I know it's very important to document everything, and I mean everything, because people fight. But my family's small now, so it's gonna be easy. But I just want to make sure I'm actually joining this group because I just want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do.
I love it.
Yeah. So thanks for this.
Jen has been awesome at providing this forum and this outlet. So thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome.
So
And I
Trudy,
love-
Trudy, I just want to tell you, somebody in the chat said it was hell. That's what they said estate planning is. So
Yes,
just
I
to let you
can
know,
see
your
that.
occupation is what that is. Okay.
I love it. That's an excellent, sums it up in one shot. So, and see all of this exactly. It's components of that whole process. So really, estate planning is a process of two scenarios. What's going to happen if I can no longer make decisions on my own? Or B, what's going to happen if I pass or if my dad passes? So it's really encompassing exactly what you guys have said, but there's so much more to it. Not only does, as Ingrid had said, how will you manage like those specific items? Where do they go from an asset perspective? But it also has a lot to do with specific tax implications and minimizing them as much as possible. Because unless you have someone that you're in love with at the CRA, which I hope none of you do, who wants to give them more than what they have? And why would you want to give it to them and not a loved one, right? Then it also has to consider, how can we maximize your estate value by, again, minimizing that shrinkage? And we also want to consider a couple of different points. One of them, the main one I'm hearing, the common theme is we want to maintain family harmony. So I think that is important. I wanted to highlight the quote there at the bottom right, where it says 70% of affluent Canadians anticipate leaving an inheritance. However, only 57% of them say they are reasonably well prepared to execute their wealth transfer. That's kind of shocking, but I'm not surprised. I deal with it every day. We've had that sort of, we've even been hearing that on this. We want to make sure we're completely prepared. So I think that those are quite important. Consideration number one, what is a will? Well, I think we've kind of established that we pretty much know what that is. Am I wrong? Ingrid, I'm gonna call you.
Yes, you're right.
What
I
is a
think we
will?
know. Oh, what is a will? A
Yeah.
will is a statement, a legal document. It will identify your estate, all your assets, and who's going to go where, what's going to go where, I should say.
Yeah.
And you have to also identify the executor, and you need a second person also, just in case something happens to the executor. And the question I have is, I don't have a lawyer, but I have everything.
I'll get you one. I work with.
I got everything all set up, and actually to the point where I wrote down like who to contact to like where my bank accounts are and my
Perfect.
utilities and whatnot.
And I
which
love
ones
it.
to close. Yeah, so I think I've
Excellent.
done everything except getting a lawyer.
That's okay. I got you. I got you. So she's pointed out 99% of the components of a will. I would like to highlight, if you have disabled loved ones, any minors that you would like to have appoint a guardianship over. I know I have some clients that have children that are unfortunately incapable of living on their own. So there is definitely that element that is in their will. Again, there could be a trust, some sort of a trust set up. How a lot of people kind of skim over this, how their debts are going to be paid. Because at the end of the day, if we have credit card debt, if we have line of credit, maybe some of us have a mortgage still, we have to allocate all that. And that also has to be outlined. And in the will is where you tend to do it. And then your funeral arrangements or your services. So those are two key elements that that are definitely a huge component of a will. Okay, this is so fun. I love this. Okay, who's going to tell me the difference between a power of attorney and an executor or an estate trustee is how they legally deem it and label it in Ontario?
Well, I know. Sorry.
And say your name first so I know who I'm speaking to, who's speaking.
Moselle?
Moselle, yes.
Okay, so the power of attorney for personal care is basically, you know, if I get sick and I lose my mind, dementia, whatever, I have two people, a friend and a family member as a second. And the property, once again, is, sell your house, pay off all the debts. And I've got the friend and my relative as a second. So the difference is basically health and monetary.
Okay, perfect. Who else wants to share their understanding of power of attorney versus an estate trustee?
Right, Helene.
Helene, yes.
Yes, and I discovered this after the fact. I thought I was all set up until I had a seminar where it said your investments are considered property.
Yep, because
When
they're
I
assets.
set up, yeah, so when I set up my will, I said to the lawyer, I have a car. Basically for property, I rent. And he said, oh, well, fine. Years later, I find out that my bank accounts are my property. Well, Doughboy never said anything other than thank you. So years later, I go back and I confront him with this, and we fixed it, but he charged me again for setting it up. And I repeated to him again that, you told me I didn't need this. Well, let's not berate the point, he says. It's very important that even though you don't think you have property, your bank accounts, your investments, life insurance, mind you, that should all be done up with right of survivorship for the beneficiary. Investments should have beneficiaries, and your life insurance, anything that you can keep out of the estate. And I'm executor for my uncle's estate right now, and we didn't need a lawyer to settle things up because everything had been set up ahead of time.
Exactly. So thank you for sharing that. And I think we can all relate to personal stories. Janet, do you want to say something?
Yes, I do. Everything I have at the bank, my accounts,
Yeah.
everything is joint with my kids.
Okay.
And their beneficiaries. So that should be all looked after. The RSPs, I realize I'm trying to get out of them as quick as I can, but that's another ongoing thing. I don't owe anything to anybody. And so I'm down to just my house. How do I minimize probate fees on the house?
Okay, so we're going to look at that actually in consideration number 3. So we're going to do a little quick down and dirty just from a understanding, but please bring that up again. Pardon?
So I'm safe as far as having my daughters as beneficiaries. And in the will, I've left them the money, not their husbands, in case anything goes askew.
Okay, so there's I love this. This is so colorful. Okay, so registered accounts, RSPs, TFSAs, any post-secondary education fund you have for your grandbabies, that's considered registered accounts, which you will have a designated beneficiary for. Bank accounts do not have beneficiaries because they're not registered, right? They're open accounts. They're non-registered accounts. Right. So the fact that you've got joint names on there as joint accounts for the bank accounts makes it a lot easier when that time comes. That freezing of it will not go through probate. Okay. And we can go through what probate is in a second. So there's that. Without knowing your entire situation, Janet, I can't give you, it's like me prescribing something as a doctor. So if you'd like to have a quick little chat at your convenience after or next week, whatever, just let me know and I'd be happy to do that with you. Okay.
Sure.
LJ, did you want to say something before I continue with the slide?
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so no, I'm just listening to what you're saying.
Okay, sorry, you were off mute. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to tell you, Trudy, in the chat, Ross said power of attorney applies only when a person is alive.
Perfect.
It takes only after death.
That's what I was looking for. Exactly.
There you go.
So that is the number one difference. In Ontario, there are 3 different types of power of attorneys available. We've already covered that. we have a continuing or enduring power of attorney, we have a power of attorney of personal care, and then we have a power of attorney financial/property. They can be all the same people as we just outlined, or it can be different individuals. However, that is in effect when we are breathing. The second that that does not happen anymore for us or for our loved ones, the executor, executrice, or / estate trustee takes over, and the power of attorney document is now voided because it doesn't apply. That's in the event we can't make our own decisions anymore, or we're incapable of making those decisions. Let me tell you, to invoke that is a pain in the butt. So please be very, very conscious of who you're going to appoint as your power of attorney, okay? Same thing with the executor. So the executor will take over automatically. So the legal document for the power of attorney will be voided, and then the estate trustee will then take action, take into effect. So some of the things I'm sure we have already considered for those who have estate trustees already. You want someone who is responsible and also trustworthy and willing to take on this responsibility, because among other things, they're going to be responsible for paying and administering your final tax bill, so income tax bill. You also want to, they're going to be notifying the beneficiaries, and perhaps depending on how the ones who are not named as estate trustee, they could very well be the ones who are calling the utility company, the card company, the vehicle company, things like that. And they're also going to be the ones administering the division of assets. So you do want to be mindful of who you're selecting as that. It can be a family member, but I have several clients who say my family members are not, they don't believe they're able to do that. But then the one thing I also want to mention is make sure they know if they're the executor or the estate trustee. The last thing you want to do is have it assigned and not talk about it. And I know there have been many generations that it's taboo to talk about money and talk about all of this because you don't want to disrupt the family harmony. You do need to have this conversation. And that's definitely one thing, having me in your corner or having a strong senior advisor in your corner, we have those conversations. And I'll actually bring the estate trustee power of attorneys into conversations and say, okay, do you understand the importance of this and the role of this? And then also the beneficiaries as well. Okay. So then we also had, the Janet bringing up the tax situation, the probate versus income tax. And I find this is such an interesting conversation, because a lot of the times we tend to think about, oh my God, how can I bypass probate fees? It's ridiculous. Oh my God, I don't know. I don't want to get those probate fees. But in Ontario, probate fees are only 1.5% of your total estate. Your final income tax bill. So now we're going to look back at time of death. It's what CRA calls deemed disposition happens, meaning everything you have from an asset perspective, your primary residence, your vacation home in Florida, your investment property in Whitby and Peterborough, your registered money, your RSPs or your income funds, your non-registered account, all of that is deemed to have been sold. All of that triggers income tax gains because you have been deemed disposed of, right? Deemed disposition. Think about 5 years ago what your house was worth versus today. Now think about the estate. You're adding all of that in. It can be as high as what, $5-6 million? That puts you in the highest income tax bracket. That could be as much as 53.53% of tax versus 1.5%. Which one would you rather save on? Anybody want to take a guess? Who wants to pay 2.5 million to CRA? Anyone? No? No? Okay, I didn't think so. So it's important to understand those two different components of the tax. So I always, when I'm talking to clients, we want to break that down and we want them to understand the importance. Does it mean that it's less important? Absolutely not. But does it mean that we also have to consider the income tax? Yes. How do we do that? What does that mean? Trudy, I have my primary residence. What does it mean when it's just me now? My husband has passed. I'm the sole owner of this house. Primary residence exemption will not kick in. So now there's a capital gain of 50%. What do I need to do? Do I need to add my kids as joint ownership? Whoa, that's a tricky situation, because guess what? While you're living, now they have a say on your house. Is that really something you want to consider? And to take it one step further, what if they're married to someone you don't like, or they're divorced? Guess what happens? In their divorce or separation, part of your house becomes now a part of the assets that are going to be divvied up. Very important to consider all of these things. There are strategies depending on the situation and your situation. So just be mindful of that.
Okay, Trudy, there's a couple questions here.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
What if you were renting, you have a small RSP, which is then given to her husband, her car is old, and all her bills are paid off. Do you still need probationary?
No, because you've got the designated beneficiary already. If it's the husband, it'll automatically roll over to the husband. It won't trigger any income tax implication.
Okay. And can you explain what is continuing POA?
It's it's encompassing both.
Okay.
Both power of attorney, so continuing or enduring.
Okay.
It's
That's the same thing.
both.
Okay, good.
Both financial and healthcare.
Okay. And then there's other stuff, but there's about wills and stuff. We'll do that after you finish your presentation.
Okay. So again, this is just a little quick down and dirty of what I just finished saying. Deemed disposition. So a lot of the times, especially with clients who might not necessarily need to draw from their RRSP, so registered retirement savings plan. What I do is I say, okay, now it's time to deregister it before 71. So for those of you who don't know, you can hold your investments or your retirement savings that is within the RRSP until December 31st of the year you turn 71, 21. Oh my God, wouldn't that be lovely? 71. And at which case it automatically converts over the following year. However, that's just the deadline. You can deregister it at any time after 55, in which case I have done that for clients because it makes the most sense if they're doing early retirement or if they're planning on doing early retirement. And what that does is it actually liquidates, especially if there's no surviving spouse, it liquidates that money. And then what we do is we then put it into a different strategy, i.e. a tax-free savings account. Is there a question, Jen? No?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. So there's different strategies on that. I just wanted to touch on that quickly. And
Ingrid,
then
did you have a question about that, or was that something separate, Ingrid?
Actually, what I was thinking is when I think I'm gonna die, when I know it's coming, I'm gonna sell my house and give away everything that I don't need anymore.
and give away. Oh my goodness.
And move to an apartment and just be, just
free.
live minimally. Yeah, that
Free.
way I don't have a big estate. My executor doesn't have to deal with all kinds of stuff.
It's funny with COVID, it's touching on what you've just said, but also a slight digression here, so bear with me. I have had several clients that have given their living inheritance so that come passing, they don't need the money. We've created and we've deduced that according to their plan that we've built, they're never going to run out of money. So they've actually enjoyed, and COVID has really facilitated this, they've given their children or their loved ones their living inheritance, and then they get to enjoy it with them. And then come that time, everything's already divvied, so whatever's left over, CRA can have at their leisure and without minimal interruption. So that is something to along the lines of what Ingrid said. If that's something that is speaking to your heart, that might be something that that you do. Again, so probate, we talked about that just now, is we designate beneficiaries where applicable, and that will help because then it automatically rolls over. I myself didn't think I was going to say this, but I think I'll share this with you. I had an unfortunate and unexpected passing in my family around Christmas time last year, a few days before Christmas. My sister-in-law, who was a nurse at Lake Ridge in Oshawa, for those of you who are familiar with the Oshawa area, she passed away. And thank God she had things set in place, components of within her estate plan. Everything just automatically rolled over to my brother. And it really provided a lot less stress than if she had nothing set up. So that's something important. So for example, she had a pension with Hoop that automatically rolled over. And in turn, because of his will, whatever's left will then go to their 2 kids. So it actually bypasses a lot of probate and also the final estate taxes. So that's something to consider. The last one I'm going to fly by this is working with your team. So we had a story shared with us that lawyer unfortunately double charged, I will say, the person with the accounts, the financial accounts. That's really important. We need to do things right the first time. We put our trust in people, in professionals, in experts who really should have your back when they're planning their financial team. And I think that is extremely important. Being a senior financial advisor, working with my clients, I get to work with people I actually enjoy, which is a blessing because I'll care about them and I'll want to do the best I possibly can. And that means providing strategies that are not cookie cutter, that are actually suited to them. And insurance has a big part of that as well. And very transparently, it does help and save a lot of frustration. So for example, my brother, they have a mortgage. They had a mortgage, I should say. And thank goodness they had an insurance strategy in place. So now, literally, I submitted the paperwork to, in this case, Canada Life on Wednesday. And by Monday morning, the money was deposited into my brother's account. And he could pay, and by Friday, the mortgage was paid. So it really does speak to what is important to you and what is important to your family. And there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to that. And you do also need an accountant as part of your trusted financial power team. I call it the estate planning power team, but also in life, you need that. So what I'll do with clients also is every November and every February, all of us convene with the client, whether it's virtually or in person or a hybrid of both. And we discuss the strategies that are going to be applicable for the following year, and then how we recapped it the prior year. And I think that is the best way. I never understand why an accountant will never talk to an advisor or to a lawyer. It doesn't make any sense to me, because at the end of the day, we have to have your best interest at heart, right? So this case study, any questions actually about that?
Okay, so just if you're looking for somebody, Trudy is happy to talk to you free of charge. Here's her email for you if you want to talk about getting your team together. There's lots of questions here, but I think about the team, there's nothing there, but I think people do want to know about their cottages.
Love it. Okay, this actually is a great segue to this vacation property. So I myself, I learned, so I have a teaching background. I went to University of Toronto to teach French, ended up in a totally different realm of industry, but I still teach. I am not a very complicated person. Simple is always best for me. And then let's bring in the numbers after. To understand the concept is what is important. So in this case, this has happened. This is based on a family that I have, a couple of families that I've worked with, but I'm giving you a very broad overview of it. They have a vacation property and they have 3 children. And right now, only one of those 3 kids is attached to the cottage, which is appraised at fair market value of $600,000. This was a case last year. They understand all of the estate situation and they're realizing that actually their estate is going to be their total. So the mom and dad total estate is almost $2 million, which means it's going to be 3 times 6. So what their intention is, they want to leave. They don't want any fights. So picture this, you have 3 children and this vacation property, and inevitably there's always going to be one who wants to keep the cottage more than the other 2 in this case. However, at the time of passing, there is a likelihood that that one who's attached to the cottage does not have enough borrowing power to buy the other 2 out. So then what? What is what's the solution? So mom and dad said, you know what, Trudy, I think you're right. Let's give in the form of a life insurance policy, $600,000 to each of our kids. So on passing, if that one son or one daughter wants to buy the others out, they have the power because A, the money is tax-free because it's an insurance policy, and B, it is given to them quicker within days of filing the paperwork so that they can buy out their kids, their brother and sister without worry and minimize the family harmony disruption. So that is a case. We can go into, on an individual basis, a little bit more specific. What is my estate shrinkage, Trudy, going to be projecting? How do I mitigate that? Because maybe an insurance policy, I already have a couple. How does that help me? What am I directing the right beneficiaries on there? What does it mean to have secondary beneficiaries, and how does that operate? But from a basic case study, 9 out of 10 times, this is what the clients choose when I present strategies to them, because it's the simplest, it's the cleanest, they don't look like the bad guy, and more importantly, everybody gets what they want. Are there any questions, Jen, that you see that maybe does not satisfy?
So basically there are people asking what are the tax numbers when it comes to an inherited cottage. So
Okay.
So say somebody left me a cottage, what do I have to pay for inheriting it?
Okay, so as of right now, there's a couple of tricks, legal tricks, I should say. There is such a thing called primary resident exemption. So one of the things that can be done for now, I believe that will change in the next few years, is you can split it so that after those conversations and the communication that you have with the kids, they can, depending on the situation, go on title and they can claim primary resident exemption on the cottage. That bypasses the capital gains. The other option, another strategy is, okay, there's going to be capital gains. Trudy, I don't want for my kids to have a say now about my property. So what would be the capital gains estimated in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And can we have a policy that, one of the ways is, can we have an insurance policy to cover that capital gains so it's bypassed, or so that my kids or my loved ones don't have to stress about where that money is coming from? Those are just two strategies. Generic strategies, mind you.
Anybody have any questions about that? You can either unmute yourself or pop it in the chat.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
It's Pat from Sudbury again.
Yes.
So just flipping back to that insurance policy you're talking about. So if my father owns his own home,
Okay.
and he's going to have to pay capital gains on it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find a way, like you say, to not give my money to the CRA or whatever. So we've got five kids involved. So if he puts like, I'm just a little bit confused how that principal residence exemption, would that apply? Like for the primary residence exemption, does that only apply if that's his first house? Because he's owned homes before that.
No, primary in the case of this situation, it's an excellent question, by the way. Primary means first in this case. This is my first home. So the cool thing that can be done is you can, and you have to have that primary resident exemption is only claimed. It can be changed at most once a year. So you can actually say, I'm going to be, and the cottage can be claimed as a primary resident. So just so I understand the situation, are all 5 kids owners as well as your dad on the cottage?
No, I'm talking just about the house.
Oh, sorry, on the house?
Yeah, so he has owned other homes, and this is where he lives now. So is that still considered, could I still get a primary residence exemption on that, even though that's not his first home he's owned in his lifetime?
It is, yes, because that's where he resides now.
Now, okay.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So actually we could do the life insurance thing.
Right, that would be a very effective and cost-effective strategy to do that as well, especially because he's not putting out mortgage payments. Now, my other question is he still the sole owner, or is there joint ownership or joint tenancy on that property?
He's the sole owner.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's definitely a good strategy to have.
So when he passes then, and then we sell the house for, we'll say like $500,000, we don't pay any capital.
No. So there would be subject to capital gains because he's the sole owner. That's
right.
Right. So the primary resident exemption rule does not apply in that situation. It's if there was two people on ownership.
Okay.
Right.
So if you put my name on the ownership, then it's exempt.
Yes. Well, then it'll roll over to you because you'll be joint tenant is
gotcha.
So that's actually, I'm glad you brought this up because the way it is worded on the ownership papers, so the deed of the house,
right?
Joint tenancy is what the lawyer is typically to put on there, is joint tenancy, because then that will roll over. So for example, my husband, Nick, if something, God forbid, happens to me right now, because we're in a joint tenancy agreement on the deed of the property, that will roll over to him and will not trigger the capital gains.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hey, Trudy. So Elaine asks, I've already got the inherited cottage and I want to sell it. Any legal tricks to avoid tax, or should the 2 you gave earlier apply?
So Helene, you're the sole owner of the cottage, of the property?
Elaine, yeah. Elaine inherited the cottage. So she's already got it.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Elaine, not Helene. Sorry, my bad. Elaine.
Yep, I've got the cottage.
Okay, so it rolled over to you, and have you
I've already got it.
Okay, and you want to sell it?
Yep. So what are the tax implications on that?
How long ago did you inherit the cottage?
Oh, probably 10 years now.
10?
Yeah, approximately.
There's no capital gains. You don't worry about capital gains there because you've already inherited it. It's already rolled over to you. So selling it does not trigger capital gains.
Okay.
Yeah, because deemed disposition doesn't apply. It's like selling a home, a regular house. Does that make sense?
Okay. Do you have more? Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
One more and then we're good.
Okay, then we'll,
Okay, so basically what it boils down to is a proper team in place will help ask those tough questions to drill down to get to the root, because we don't expect, or I don't expect my clients to understand the ins and outs. I'm always asking different questions. There's so many things that we need to consider when we're looking at this with this type of estate planning. Does your family enjoy an open and healthy dialogue about money and wealth? A lot of the times it's taboo. So how can we facilitate that? How can we work around that? Are your children financially educated and they're able to responsibly inherit your estate? If the answer is no, then there is definitely options, even though they're over the age of 18, so they're not considered a minor at this point in Ontario. We can still set up trust funds and trust accounts so that money gets deposited into their account strategically and in segments, in like portions rather than all at once. So those are things you need to also consider when you're talking about leaving the inheritance or beneficiaries. Have you guys had that conversation of how they might want to use it? Maybe they want to put that towards that house that they always wanted, and that will ensure your legacy and continuity of intergenerational wealth. What are your goals and expectations and values as a family? Those are important conversations to have, but important to also note, fair does not also mean equal. Equal is 50-50 or 25-25, 25-25. But that does not generally equate to fair. So in the case where that case study was, it was fairly done. Only one of the 3 siblings wanted the cottage. It wasn't equally shared. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Good. And then have you already, some things to think about too. I'm thinking of a client who lives up in Port Perry. She's already given living inheritances to 5 out of her 7 kids. So therefore she chose to update her will and said, the rest is given now to my 2 children that did not receive the living inheritance. So then again, fair doesn't always mean equal. What we're doing is we're also considering factors like common law blended families. We've talked about that a little bit. Special needs beneficiaries. So I have several clients that have RDSPs for their children. What does that mean? Because now we need to plan for that. Young children in the sense of, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Who's going to act as guardianship? Is there a business, a family business involved? That is also, we've talked about the vacation properties, sentimental items, protecting the child's inheritance. Gosh, there's so much, but it really is, if chatting, having the conversation with someone, does not have to be me, but it has to be someone you trust and you like, and you believe they have your best interest at heart. It is as a financial advisor, fiduciary duty to always act in your best interest. If you have not heard from your advisor in 12 months, you need to reach out to them or consider getting a second opinion, because things are changing lightning speed. Thank you guys so much. Questions open for forum. We're kind of like a little behind, so
Trudy, do you have a few minutes to answer a couple of these questions? Okay, great.
Yep.
And just to let you know, guys, Trudy will be back tomorrow. So if we don't get, or not tomorrow, next Thursday at 2. So to do part 2.
Don't scare me.
Don't scare you.
Don't scare me like I'm nothing prepared.
So next time, Trudy, do you want to talk a little bit what we're going to do next time before we get to questions?
Yes. So I'm hoping that next week will be a more hands-on approach. So I'm going to have some worksheets for everyone, and we're going to go through some of what I'm finding clients are saying is one of the most tedious processes. And then we're going to do some exercises together based on what we've just talked about today. So we're going to apply a little bit of knowledge, and in the background, you're going to be doing your own little worksheets.
So get the process started if you haven't done it, or you can come and get we could all do it together, so it'll be less painful.
Exactly. And it'll be generic information that we work together on, but you'll be writing it down personally. So we don't have to share that personal information with the group.
Great. So first, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Trudy, before we get to the questions. Anybody that needs to leave, this is being recorded, so it will be in the library in 24 hours. And Trudy, would you mind sharing this PowerPoint presentation with us? Would that be okay?
Course.
Okay, great.
Yes,
so I will attach this to the email tomorrow, so you can get it there, and I'll also put it in the library. So if anybody wants that.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'll try to get through some of these, and then Trudy, whenever you need to wrap it up, let me know.
Okay.
And I think we can all only take so much estate planning in our lives, so we'll try to do this as quick as possible.
In one shot.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So how How do you appoint executors and people to handle various mandates if you have no children or family in Canada? Okay, so we talked about that.
Yep.
You can hire a lawyer, right? Or somebody else like that.
Some firms also allow that to be internal, so you could have someone to do that as well. Yep.
Okay.
For in the case of the Raymond James situation where we had.
Okay, I think okay, so we all right, so my will was written in BC. Is it still valid in Ontario? And can I just have it amended in Ontario?
It is still valid. It's still a legal document. The only thing I can see perhaps might be an issue is the tax situation, because if it's, I'm assuming at one point that that person had lived in BC, so
Yeah.
the probate tax would be different there. That would be the only thing to consider. And in which case there might be an amendment needed. Thanks, Trudy and Jen. Very fun. Perfect.
Do you know if it matters if the executor is in BC?
Yes, it does. It does matter because they would need to also be privy and have access to certain information pertaining to the place of where the past or the deceased resides. So if from an Ontario, like if they're in BC and it's Ontario and they've never been in Ontario, the rules will be different, in which case they will have to lean heavily more on to a legal representative who is aware of the rules of Ontario.
Okay.
Especially if they have multiple properties and if it's internationally held, because there's different tax laws for every jurisdiction. Yeah.
So really it's easiest if you have, if your team is in the same province.
The place that you reside. Yeah. In the same district, province or district.
Okay. So can you talk about risks to a stepmom? That's her. So I guess she's wondering.
Nancy, where's Miss Nancy?
Oh, this is Carmen.
Carmen? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Carmen, I feel you. So I am a stepmom, as you know. So risks would be, okay, so let's give you a scenario here. I'll give you my scenario. So my husband and I, we co-own our house. And originally his thought was his share, if something happens to him before me, and statistically speaking, women outlive men, his half is going to go to his daughter. And his daughter at that time was a minor, which means her mother, his ex-wife, would have deciding factor on that. So it can get extremely sticky. I had to explain that to him. I certainly am not going to be forced to have to buy out his ex-wife/daughter to stay in this house that I contribute financially to. So what we've done is, in that case, we've set up an insurance policy. So that is a risk if you want to, from a asset perspective. When it comes to me giving to her, it's as simple as putting it in the will. I don't know if you have a specific question. You're on mute, my dear.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. No, these three stepchildren are mature adults, 49, 50, 51. And two of them live in countries outside of Canada. One is in Canada, and they're stepkids. And so I just wondered, is there anything in particular, that I need to be aware of? Because is there anything that I need to be aware of? Because we moved from BC, we're in Ontario now. And while we're going to, review our will and revise it, and it sounds like what you're saying, it's better to have everybody who's involved in the estate in Ontario.
Yep.
So, so I was just wondering, because I'm expecting some acrimony and disharmony, and I want to prevent that from happening. And yeah, and of course my husband wants to prevent this from happening as well.
And it sounds as if you and your husband have a very good open dialogue. Really, at the end of the day, it has to be what's important to him. How does he want his legacy to be left? And that's divvied up into the three stepkids and you. So at the end of the day, the fallback is on the will, right? However they choose, if they're doing that, just to make sure that you're not being forced out of house and home.
Yeah.
Or if he has any RSPs or any pension, it's already designated to fall to you. But then in his will, if he wishes to have a portion of that given to his kids, once you pass, then that's something that he has to outline in there.
Yeah, thank you. I think because I have some specific questions, I will just follow up with you. So that we can
absolutely.
have a non kind of compressed
Well, then I can get a little
conversation.
bit, yeah, and then I can get a little bit more in tune with your personal situation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes,
You're
Karen.
welcome.
Hey, Mazel, did you get your question answered yet?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
So I'm single. I don't have any children. I had a husband and we separated about 21 years, 23, 24 years ago. Does
Okay.
that matter?
In what sense?
So in my will, I've said I've been separated since 2001.
Right.
And I don't wish any of my estate to go to my my husband, I guess, because we never got divorced.
Okay. And so in your will, it's listed by asset that it's to go to someone
Yes,
else.
not to
You're fine.
benefit.
Yep, you're good.
I'm fine.
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
It's in there.
And then I have it's in a codicil. Does it matter?
No.
Okay. Because I've just got a regular will with one appointed person. So I don't have a second person. Do I have to have a second person?
You don't have to have a second person.
I just hope she doesn't pass away, right?
Well, I would have a backup just in case, like a secondary estate trustee, just in case, if you expect that to happen.
Okay, and then in the codicil, I've also set out who I'd like gifts to go to, like, kids and stuff.
Perfect.
So should that be in percentage or should it be like
I would do
50,000?
I would do a percentage only because we hope that inheritance, if it's money, it grows. So what if it grows to $1 million and you've only given them 50,000?
Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah. And what about when you're giving it to like a community, like the RBG?
A charitable donation, that's perfect
right.
because that's an offset for your final income taxes. Again, a percentage.
Oh, okay, but that can still be in the codicil as a gift.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then at age 71, I didn't really get what you were saying to liquidate all my investment.
So it doesn't liquidate. What happens is your registered retired savings plan, so your RRSP, automatically converts into an RRIF. Because at that point, the government says you need to start drawing from your money. So that would be the registered retirement income fund. You don't have to liquidate. It's a lateral.
Okay, so to avoid that, what were you saying to do?
You don't have to avoid it, but in certain cases, what happens is you can force it earlier than 71. So then it doesn't automatically do it. You do it depending on your tax planning.
Right.
Right.
So I could put that in the tax-free savings.
Well, what happens is because you've never paid income tax on the money that's in your RRSP,
that's still
as soon as you withdraw it, there will be a tax implication there.
Yeah.
So do it strategic. We can have a follow-up phone call if that, or even a meeting. Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
And Trudy, thank you so much for doing this. I can see there's 70, 80 people online, and there's a lot of us seniors that are just panicking. It's really sad.
You know what? And I think like taking it back to my parent, like you don't know what you don't know. So you expect that the person that you go to, if it's at whatever institution, is going to give you the guidance. And unfortunately, they have not. And that's
why I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, see, you're going to make me cry.
Okay, no tears yet. We have more questions to get through here.
Okay, I'll take a couple more and then
more questions, and then we're going to save the chat. And then if your question didn't get asked, Trudy will get the chat and be able to figure it out. So Lulu, I know you had a question in the chat and you also have your hand up. Did you want to do all of those questions? Or is it the same question?
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, Trudy.
I'm just going to follow up on what Mozelle was saying. Like, I've been separated since 2007, and I live in the house. I've done everything in the house, the renovations and everything else. So I'm about to start doing a will. If anything happens to me, does the home, even though I have a will, does the home automatically go to my estranged husband, or?
Do you have a separation? And again, by the way, guys, I should have said this before. I am not a lawyer, so I do not know laws of the world of Ontario in and out like a lawyer would. So always seek counsel there. But from this perspective, and I'm drawing from this from my connections from my lawyers and experience. Do you have a separation agreement in place?
No, because he left. I don't even know where he is.
So then at this point, I would go to a lawyer and get your legalities on that, because there could be an opportunity for him to acquire those assets.
So I don't have a separation agreement either.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys should get some.
And then as a follow-up on that, Trudy,
Yeah.
I found out from a relative that an aunt left him a substantial big house on one of the islands. So where does that leave me? Do I have a right to part of that house? It is so, I don't want to get involved in all of that. I couldn't care less, but
Okay.
it's just for my own, I to learn from this.
I mean, we can take that offline too, but I guess my question to you is, you're trying, without, anything, is you're trying to shelter from you the same thing you're inquiring about from his perspective. So just be mindful of that, right? So when you're having that conversation with the lawyer, that's definitely something. If you don't want to have anything to do with him, I mean, that's my personal take on it. Let sleeping dogs lie, because the second you do that, you're now going to awaken Pandora, like you're going to open Pandora's box.
Okay,
right?
that's what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
do you need to have a will, Trudy? Do you have to have a will?
There's no law to say that you have to have a will, but everything you've worked so hard for, do you not want to have control as to where it goes?
Yeah. Yes.
I
Definitely.
certainly don't, as much as I love, let's say, my stepdaughter, I don't want her acquiring 100% of everything I have worked so hard for.
Perfect.
And what I do give her, I want it to be in stages.
Perfect.
I also want to know that if I want to choose to give some of my money, my investments to a charity, I want to select the charity.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. You have answered my questions.
Thank you guys so much. I am so blessed to be able to have an opportunity to meet each and every one of you. Thank you very, very much. I'm more than happy to take questions. If you guys want to send me an email or give me a call. I am in the Durham region. I'm in Oshawa, but I do travel. I don't mind meeting you in person for a coffee on me. If you want to have a chat, I don't like stuffiness, and I don't want anybody to feel intimidated. So if you have any other questions that's specific to you, please let us know, and we can make it happen. Jen, thank you so much for this opportunity and the amazing work that you do. This community that you've built is incredible. So kudos to you. It's not easy. I can imagine it's hard work. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Trudy. I think you helped a lot of people today.
I hope so. And I
think you
hope that
have.
you guys will be back next week.
Come back next week for worksheets.
Some
Of the-
work.
no,
We're gonna
not
actually
worksheets.
work.
And if you have any questions, you can send them to me now or during the week, and I'll send them along to Trudy so she'll know that they're coming. And I will
I'll send
also
the
any of those.
presentation.
Okay, and sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope. I was just gonna say, if any more questions, anything that we missed in the chat, like I said, I'm gonna go through the chat. Anything that wasn't answered, I'll also send that to Trudy. So we'll try to get as many questions as we can. And obviously, if you've got specific questions, reach out to Trudy and she can talk to you about them, because everybody is their own.
We all have a story.
We all contain multitudes. Let's just
Yes,
say.
we all have a story. And 2 p.m. next week, right?
2
Jen?
p.m. this time. Yep. Same time, same place. We'll see you then.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Trudy. We'll see you then.
Have a fabulous day, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.